and your lovely wife. Then he pulled me and my wife into the center of the photo, smiling with that great and infectious smile of his. It is said that humility is the modest or low view of one's own importance. That's what it is said. It is about being humble. In other words, instead of feeling that you are almighty and important, you treat others like they are the ones deserving of the spotlight. I'm here today to testify that Sir Probyn Ellsworth Inniss epitomized humility. He made everyone feel just as or more important than he was. Never mind that he was a distinguished former governor and head of state. Sir Probyn not only had good characteristics, he had impeccable character. His was a social pedigree that is fast dying. I have written many speeches, small, big ones. I've used many words, and one of the words I have used is integrity. Today is the first time I use it with the greatest sincerity. Another admiration I had for him was his integrity, which was the bond that glued all of his other fine virtues together. This great departed soul and man of God brilliantly integrated all of his fine principles, making his life a united whole. This was also a man who believed in helping us to know ourselves and our origin and our glorious past. That is why the greatest tribute to Sir Probyn's legacy would be to continue the education and the crusade that he championed, to teach us about our history. He and men like Washington Archibald are true patriots of our Africanism, history, and our heritage. About 4 years ago, a friend of mine suggested that we develop a national lecture series to facilitate important and sober discussions on topics that would elevate the national discourse. That mission got sidelined over the years, and it was in January this year I decided I would encourage my friend to have us restart our efforts. And I also said to him recently, just a few days ago, that I wanted to approach Sir Probyn to ask his permission back in January to name the program the Sir Probyn Inniss Lecture Series. Sadly, I procrastinated and I was too late. However, I wish to declare that before the end of 2017, I shall ensure that the Sir Probyn Inniss Lecture Series is launched as a lasting tribute to his legacy. There are many of you here today who should expect my call to assist in making this a reality. It is obvious that he had so much more work to be done, but not enough time. And in a moment of levity, it reminds me of my team from the McKnight area, Garden Hotspurs, who always run out of time. I bid farewell to Sir Probyn Inniss. Farewell, my friend and mentor. And as Michael Jackson once sang, like a comet blazing across the evening sky, gone too soon. Like the loss of sunlight on a cloudy afternoon, gone too soon. Like a sunset dying with the rising of the moon, gone too soon. Here one day, gone one night. As I close, allow me to extend on behalf of my wife, Bibiana, my son, Kaijana, and daughter, Shania, who is the goddaughter of Probyn Jr., our profound sympathies during this grave moment of despair. As you walk through this valley of sadness, have comfort that God shall deliver you from this cocoon of depression and sorrow. Stay strong. Thank you.
Amen. Good afternoon, church. Sir Probyn Inniss's association with the Brimstone Hill Society goes back to the founding of the Society for the Restoration of Brimstone Hill in 1965. Established in that year on the initiative of the colonial administrator, Lieutenant Colonel H.A.C. Howard, with members of the local planter mercantile oligarchy, to clean up and selectively restore the great fortress as a showpiece for the anticipated visit of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip in the following year. It was supported by His Excellence Robert Bradshaw. Mr. Inniss, previously a history teacher at the grammar school, was then a civil servant at government headquarters and had been assigned to work on the program for the Queen's visit. So it was deemed appropriate for him to be appointed secretary to the new organization. However, because of his many other duties, he did not take up that appointment for another 2 years and then served for about 2 years afterwards. Then he returned in about 2000 as a government-nominated member of the Council of Management. During the intervening years, he had performed various roles, including Crown Counsel and Governor of St. Kitts Nevis and Anguilla. During this period, Sir Probyn also authored and self-published 2 important books on the history of St. Kitts and Nevis. Historic Bastia in 1979 is a chronology of significant dates and developments in the capital town, a very useful source book for students, teachers, and general readers. With the Bound, St. Kitts Nevis, published in 1983, is a cogent analysis of the political and constitutional circumstances leading to independence. In the concluding chapter, the author writes, quote, "There is a crying need for political education. We have to cultivate a climate in which people are encouraged to think their own thoughts and express them fearlessly," unquote. In 2005, Sir Probyn found the time to research and publish 40 Years of Struggle, which traces the history of the period between the Portuguese riots of 1896 and the Buckley's Uprising of 1935, which witnessed the growth in St. Kitts of the labor union movement. It is my opinion that it should be considered mandatory reading for all history students. And it may be a good idea to begin, with permission of course, by distributing the opening chapter of 4 or 5 pages to every fourth former. They might be encouraged thereby to read the entire book. In the concluding chapter, the author poses the question, quote, and this is in relation to the closure of the sugar industry, "Will an historic opportunity be seized upon this time around?" One can think of 2 past opportunities which have been missed: emancipation and independence, unquote. I invite you to read the book to discover what he means. Suffice it to say that after his dismissal as governor of St. Kitts and Nevis in 1981, Sir Probyn focused much of his enormous energies and scholarship on discourses via radio interviews, lectures, sermons, discussions, and writings on the history, particularly post-emancipation, of his country. It is tempting to say he was driven, but by the demeanor and temperament he displayed, it was more like a controlled passion. He embraced as his mission the elucidation and engendering of appreciation among citizens of our country's history and heritage, which he believed was fundamental to personal and national development and stability. This mission did not apparently conflict with his other great purpose in life, which was service to his church, the Methodist Church, in which he performed in various administrative roles and as a lay preacher. And of course, he had a law practice to maintain and a family to engage with. But Sir Probyn managed all of this and yet took on the task of being a council member and then, in 2005, the president of the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park Society. The Brimstone Hill Society is a membership organization open to everyone. Its evolution from an elitist organization to a democratic institution mirrors our own constitutional journey towards democracy. However, the board or the council of management serves voluntarily. The Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park Society has been served very well by its presidents. Mr. D. Lloyd Matheson, CBE, from 1967 to 1989, succeeded the founding president, Sir Geoffrey Pearl Boone. Mr. Matheson strengthened the organization and won great respect for the society locally, abroad, and from the government, thus paving the way for its empowerment through the landmark National Conservation and Environmental Protection Act of 1987, passed under the coalition administration headed by Dr. now Sir Kennedy Simmons, which gave it management control over the fortress and its hill, except for roads, which then was and remains now the responsibility of the government of the day. Mr. Victor Smith, a British expert, served for a year and did much by his research and writings to make a compelling case for the inscription of Brimstone Hill Fortress as a World Heritage Site. Mr. later Sir Cecil Jacobs, a retired and the first governor of the East Caribbean Central Bank, serving from 1990 to 2005, presided over institutional developments, including the strengthening of financial management. Sir Probyn Inniss consolidated upon these gains and made other significant contributions. He exemplified the philosophy important in this now generation that conservation is just as fundamental to stability and growth as innovation. When he was a regular member of council, Sir Probyn mooted the idea of the society organizing an annual week of activities to help foster greater knowledge and appreciation of the history and heritage of the country. This was of tremendous concern to him, for he felt that there was a serious lack of such knowledge and interest, resulting in aimlessness and deteriorating values, particularly among the youth. His plea to the council was not at first entertained, but he wheeled and come again and again until, when he became president, the council agreed to fund the project, using reserves from surpluses accumulated when Brimstone Hill was the only tourist attraction. He has personally solicited funding from outside the society to sustain this endeavor, now in its 11th consecutive year. At the 40th anniversary celebration of the society in 2005, he said, quote, "As we look back, we have nothing but admiration to the founders of the society, their vision, their dedication, and their patriotism. It is well understood that they did not share the same worldviews. Nevertheless, they were able to work together in a great cause because they respected each other and placed the good of the country above self." This was like a mantra, a prayer, a call repeated at every opportunity that he had to speak publicly, that our people must emulate our ancestors who suffered but prevailed because they worked with each other and placed the good of the community above self. So, I have tried in 4 minutes to pay tribute on behalf of the Brimson Hill Society to a remarkable multidimensional person, its president, who served with great commitment this country and his church through the excellence of his talents and scholarship, selflessly, with dignity and personal sacrifice, ever accessible and approachable, generous, sometimes to a fault, but grounded by a steady core of principles, an exemplary family man. These are all worthy attributes, I should think, of a national hero. Give thanks.
respective tributes. It is my understanding that the anthem by the circuit choir, "Come Let Us Sing of a Wonderful Love," was one of the favorite hymns of Sir Probyn Inniss. Moving right along, we turn now to the Word of God. The Gospel will be read for us by Reverend Joseph Lloyd, former superintendent of the St. Kitts Circuit. Please stand.
My brothers and sisters, I greet you heartily and invite you now to listen to the Gospel which comes from John chapter 14, verses 1 to 6 and verse 27. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. And you know the way to the place where I am going. Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way? Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not let them be afraid. This is the gospel of Christ. Praise to Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Standing for our next hymn, O Love That Will Not Let Me Go. Following the singing of this hymn, the next voice you will hear will be our preacher for today, Bishop Charles Seaton, Leeward Islands District President.